Or believes they fell to Earth on the Foster Ranch, only to be found by Mac Brazel.
I think this was some sort of comedy of mistaken identity. The people at Roswell had no idea what we were doing. The rancher apparently got the idea that he had recovered a flying saucer.
Research scientist Dave Rudiak has a hard time believing that experienced military personnel would mistake weather balloons and radar targets for a flying saucer.
The materials used in the mogul balloon were off-the-shelf weather materials. This is a small weather balloon I picked up at a Army surplus store. And any child knows what a balloon looks like. And this mysterious foil paper that they made the radar targets from is the same stuff that Hershey had been wrapping their candy bars with since before 1920. It was a common consumer product for over 30 years before Roswell. And so unless the guys at Roswell never had candy bars or chewing gum, you know, they would have been pretty familiar with it.
I have a difficult time believing that Jesse Marcel, as the intelligence officer of the 509th Bomb Group, the only atomic strike force in the world at the time, was so incompetent that he couldn't identify weather balloon remains when he saw them.
In 1997, the 50th anniversary of the Roswell incident, the Air Force issued its final word on the subject. The Roswell report, Case Closed, addressed the question of eyewitness reports of alien bodies.
Their second final report was to deal with the bodies, and they came up with anthropomorphic dummies that they were using to test ejection systems and parachutes from high altitudes, which is fine, but the test didn't begin until 1953, 6 years after this event, so it makes no sense.
So whom should we believe? Was it a weather balloon and crash dummies, as the Air Force has claimed, or was it something extraterrestrial? Research scientist Dave Rudiak thinks he has the answer. A 55-year-old photo that he believes to be the smoking gun of the Roswell incident.
This is General Ramey. In his hand, he's holding this message, which is so important. The image is of sufficient quality that we can read quite a bit of the message. And it tells a very remarkable story.
Yep. Doesn't look like there's a two-track running up to it.
Bill Dolman brings his crew out to examine a strange geological feature he's noticed just about a quarter of a mile from the dig site.
And this, Jiminy Christmas. This feature behind us is very visible from the road. And probably the first or second day we were working out here, we noticed it on the side of the road and everybody went, oh, what the heck is that? Well, this alternative furrow, I'm going to call it the alternative furrow, is 70 degrees east of true north. 54 degrees difference. Something disturbed the ground there in a wide enough area to initiate a 30-meter-long erosional feature. Then it wasn't a cow path, and it wasn't a two-track, and it wasn't a natural drainage because it doesn't go down slope. It cuts across the slope. We have an anomaly here.
Dolman and his team map and measure the new anomaly for future study. Since it lies so close to the generally accepted location of the debris field, could the fading memories of now deceased witnesses have been off by a quarter of a mile or so?
We came out here to investigate a furrow that nobody can see on the surface. One of the major questions we started with is, where is that furrow? And if they had taken me to this feature and said, this is the furrow, I would have gone, oh, yeah, there's something there. While you guys are getting ready to map this thing, I'm just going to cruise around here and see if I can find anything else.
Okay.
Oh my golly gosh. It's a freaking weather balloon. And I was just completely surprised and thought it was hugely ironic that right around the corner we have a furrow in a weather balloon.
Dolman's discovery of a weather balloon might be more than just ironic. It could mean that the Air Force's original explanation of the Roswell crash was correct after all.
Should the case ever develop that we would find anything conventional suggesting that it was part of the Air Force theory as to what actually transpired out here, we would first of all rely on the background, the experience of the archaeologists involved to establish the provenance of that material. Was it something that was here dating back around 50, 55 years? Or is there the possibility it was something planted much more recently?
Do I think it could date back to 1947? It's hard to say. I think that if you notice how the grass is kind of growing through here, and the fact that when I try and lift it, it's sort of stuck to the ground. Stuff has been growing into it for a while.
While Dolman waits for the National Weather Service to assess the balloon's age, he oversees the final phase of the project at the original debris field dig site, backhoe excavation of carefully selected sections of the field.
The backhoe trenching is kind of the last phase of investigative activity. But we can look at a backhoe trench just like this one in the side of it, look at the stratigraphy that shows up in it, and see whether or not there's evidence of a furrow. We so far have found absolutely no evidence of the furrow.
As the end of the dig draws near, scientists at Foster Ranch have yet to uncover definitive physical evidence of a crash. And even the most dedicated UFO researchers admit they've yet to get their hands on any solid proof that refutes the government's explanation of what happened at Roswell.
I think we're back where we started. We're back to the original story. We're back to the Air Force's, the Army Air Force's reaction to what was found, which is all out of proportion for anything that would be mundane.
Rumors grew that they might even be fantastic invaders from another planet. But now they tell us it was just a lot of balloons.
UFO researcher and author Carl Flock considers himself a former Roswell believer who has now become a skeptic.
I'm very, very sympathetic with people who find it difficult to let go of Roswell, if you will. There is this kind of natural human tendency to begin to discount the things that you really don't want to hear and to emphasize the things you really do want to hear, and I kind of think of this as the will to believe, if you will. And I went through that with Roswell.
Over the years, skeptics' arguments against Roswell have gained momentum, as some of the elements of eyewitness stories seem to have lost their credibility. With the passage of time, stories have changed, details have come back unconfirmed, and many hopeful researchers have hit dead end after dead end.
So I got my heart broken a couple of times. Initially, I thought the people with the aliens rolling around in the dust were telling the truth. It hurt to find out they weren't.
Perhaps the most disappointing witness is the late Sergeant Frank Kaufman. For years, Kaufman intrigued Roswell investigators with stories of strange objects appearing on military radar screens and deceased aliens found outside of a crashed spacecraft.
When you start looking at the basic elements of the story that goes beyond the initial find of some kind of strange debris, they all track back to Frank Kaufman. Frank is the guy who really is largely responsible for the guts of the Roswell myth.
Frank Kaufman became a very important source because he seemed to be on the inside. His story was that he was directly involved. He was an important cog in the retrieval operation, that he had access to all the information and talked about how the bodies were flown out of Roswell and where they were kept and what they looked like and what the craft looked like, and produced drawings of all of this stuff. And unfortunately, Frank Kaufman's testimony doesn't seem to be credible anymore. And that's a real blow to the investigation, because the skeptical community will say, well, you guys believed him, and we did.
Further blows to those seeking the truth about Roswell have been the hoaxes that have grown up around the incident, such as the Ray Santilli alien autopsy film, the so-called secret MJ-12 documents, The photographs that Penthouse publisher Bob Guccione bought for $200,000